Modern race cars do crazy things on the track and have their own challenge in drive, but the love for the old school beasts is still here, and we the sim guys are lucky to have the chance to taste what the 80s drivers had to deal with. Playing karate-like on the pedals, timing precisely each gear shift, revving the engine while braking with the same feed is a challenge which gives tons of satisfaction when it's properly executed. Growing in 80s around one of the most challenging rally stages in Bulgaria, those cars have seeded that passion for the sport into my soul and will always have that special place in my heart. If back then someone had told the 7-year-old version of me that I will be able to experience virtually those monsters the way I do now, I wouldn't believe it. How lucky we are indeed to see and live that sim evolution, which is driven from passionate people like us, the poor enthusiasts, and most importantly the guys with the engineering brains who chase authenticity and immersion. Billy and Dave from BDH are another extreme example of what passion for the sport can create in a little basement and how that turns into living dream. I know H-pattern shifters are not what many care about, but for those like me is a fun on completely different level, so let's check that 5-year anniversary H1 BDH model have to offer and how it feels against the competition. The necessary disclaimer first, BDH sent that product for test and review purposes without any conditions, and as always my goal is to be as objective as possible. They claim that anniversary model from build point of view is as sturdy as the first model with upgraded electronics which are now Hall sensors instead of micro switches, and most importantly reduced price at 614 euro before VAT in pre-order for the first 250 units. That still sounds like hefty price, but in my opinion, having many good shifters here, this looks like insanely competitive price for the lifetime warranty in that build quality. I don't have the brains to explain the mechanism in that bazooka-like bulky aluminum body, and I also have no idea what can go wrong inside, but as a reviewer, the lifetime warranty makes my life easier, and checking comment section on all the reviews, the guys who had some issues have been happy with the BDH services. However, don't hesitate to share your experience in the comment section, as your experience have way more value than my opinion for potential future owners. Also, one side note for those who already got the first batch from this new model is loosey gate bolt. I haven't experienced such a problem in that unit, but really appreciate the developer note. Dave looks like very passionate for his work and seems to care a lot about his honest image. They said the problem arrived with the upgraded spec gates, which now are metal and fixed for the next batch, so I guess it's solved, but if you experience that issue from the first batch, just contact BDH to solve it. However, there are 30 units which may got that loose bolt problem, and if some of you already have one of those and need hotfix because you need the shifter for upcoming race, open the back cup, take the bolt out, find M5 nut and add it to that bolt. Next step is put it back and align between gates, tighten the bolt, and then turn the M5 nut the opposite way to add that extra tension. That will keep it in place till you find time and send it to BDH, who will fix that in proper way as they did in the new units. Lifetime warranty after all, so use it. Now, that being said, let's check what this monster can do and how it feels in action. There are 8 gates, from which 1 to 6 are in the standard position, which means in neutral the lever sits in between the 3rd and 4th, and for the 7th and 8th we have to overcome further resistance, in which the lever extends slightly from that bottom slot. On top we have this bolt, which progressively adds to the initial torque required for the engagement. Basically, this goes from almost zero resistance to very serious pressure. One thing to keep in mind if you are like me slamming gears like a madman is the orientation of the 7th and 8th gear, as usually one of those will become reverse. In rapid changes, under pressure is easy to overcome that extra force required for those last slots, so my choice for reverse in 5 gears cars is outside and bottom. For example, if I go too hard from 4th to 5th and have reversed on slot 7, I can say goodbye to the engine. The same can happen if I mount the shift around and have those slots inside. Downshift from 3rd to 2nd can go in the wrong spot. Of course, in normal use it's not that dangerous, but I never shift gently. Also, I like stiff gates, but this shifter covers my needs way below maximum stiffness. I'm at about 30% from the max, and that says a lot. It will cover definitely all of us in terms of engagement in action. The distance between gears from that 19 cm tall lever feels good at around 5 cm movement. The centering spring is just enough to lead the lever from 2nd to 3rd or 5th to 4th precisely at the stiffness I personally prefer, but even in the hardest settings it's hard to shift in the wrong gate. Basically, I didn't need it to build any muscle memory for precise execution, and I think that's the most balanced in terms of self-centering lever for precise gearing shifter I ever tested here. In terms of tolerance of the lever, there is little movement in neutral and in gear slot, which is absolutely fine in action and totally unnoticeable. In terms of actual shifting feeling, is quite mechanically engaging. BDH have built from memory that H1 to feel close to the Escort MK2, but I haven't drove that car ever and can't confirm the authenticity. However, we used to make our Citroën Saxo Rally cars gear mechanics, replacing some rubber parts with metal to shorten the travel, and it has very similar result in terms of feeling. Rubbery feeling in normal cars we have disappear and becomes very metallic like engagement, so those sim shifters are very close to the real thing, and this is not exception. Moving to the mounting solution, bottom 4 slots for direct attachment on aluminum frame or can be turned around for side connection. In my case, I have it on just 2 bolts, and the little flex is actually coming from the aluminum frame itself, which is absolutely fine for me. Now, the $1 million question, how it compares against some of my favorite shifters. The Ioloc H and the AW Hypershift are just a little cheaper, but in that same price range, plus minus 20%. So, in terms of build quality, they are all great, just that BDH looks on different level, and I guess the material quantity used in that build is more like double, so being more expensive makes sense, plus that life warranty is, I guess, the biggest value we can get from those 3. In terms of settings, they all offer stiffness adjustment, but the Ioloc needs tools. The Another Way Hyper and the BDH are hand adjustable. It looks like slight advantage for those two, but the Iolocs have separate adjustment to each axis. Now, what the Another Way Hyper offer is sequential mode, and the other two are pure H pattern only, so that's some advantage for those who care about sequential gearing. That being said, in terms of H pattern mode, the feeling of each is slightly different. Both Iolocs and Another Way Hypershift have metallic friction feeling engaging the gear gate. It is not just instant click, but the movement has a bit of friction, which gives authentic feeling like in used gearbox, which I love a lot. The BDH feels mechanical as well, but more like in completely new gearbox with 0 mileage. It is subjective which feels better, but all 3 are quite unique in engagement. The other difference is the another way hyper shifter gates are a bit more separate away from each other. The BDH are the closest and the iLox is in the middle. That difference is quite small and noticeable only if I'm used to one of those, but subjectively BDH is my favorite in terms of that distance between gates. What I like a lot on the another way hypershift is the secure reversed, and basically those are the differences talking about poor feeling. Another important thing I have to mention is all those shifters are loud in action, with the iLock being the quietest, but none of those is silent. I mean, proper engagement and quiet operation doesn't go together at all. So, all three have something unique and look like good value, but the BDH is the only one with lifetime warranty, and that must be the real advantage for the peace of mind. After so many requests over the years, I finally had the chance to test that famous BDH shifter, and I'm happy to report it didn't disappoint. It is right up with the other top shifters I have here, and in person this is real beast, which looks like it's coming straight from old classic race car. Again, I know not many care about those authentic old cars experiences like I do, but if you do, there are top choices and the H1 is one of those. We are so lucky to have guys like Billy, Dave and many others who gives us those unique experiences. What a great times to be alive as sim enthusiasts.